Welcome to Valor Stories. In each episode, we honor a hero awarded the highest gallantry medal, celebrating their courage and sacrifice. Join us as we bring their legacies alive. On a sizzling day of May 1968, Benavidez heard the crackle of a radio and a desperate plea for help. A 12-man Special Forces team was surrounded by North Vietnam Army Infantry Battalion of about 1,000 men. Benavidez leaped into action. Without orders and armed with only a knife, he climbed aboard a helicopter. Over the next 6 hours in hell, Benavidez would defy death again and again, plunging into the jungle to rescue his fallen comrades and the classified information they carried. Benavidez battled the enemy, saved lives of his fellow soldiers, and nearly lost his. This is the remarkable story of Master Sergeant Roy Benavidez. Born on August 5, 1935 in Cuero, Texas, was a boy named RAUL PEREZ Roy Benavidez. He was the son of a Mexican farmer and a Yaqui mother. Benavidez had to get tough from the beginning. Tragedy struck early in Roy's life. His parents passed away, leaving him orphaned and in the care of relatives in El Campo. Despite the hardship, Roy's spirit remained unbroken. At 15, Roy left school to work and support his family. His life was tough, but he was tougher. Roy's journey to heroism began when he enlisted in the Texas Army National Guard during the Korean War. He was just a teenager, but his determination was that of a seasoned soldier. His dedication and hard work led him to active duty and eventually to the elite 5th Special Forces Group. On his first deployment to Vietnam, tragedy stuck, as in his own words.
I stepped on a landmine my first trip to Vietnam. I woke up at Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. I was declared never to walk again. I was paralyzed from the waist down. So I used to slip out of bed at night and I'd crawl to a wall. And I sat against the wall, and I backed myself up against the wall and stand there, trying to move my toes right and left, right and left. And I begged God to please help me. 7 months later, I walked out of that hospital. I walked out with a limp, but I walked out. I went back to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I made 3 parachute jumps in one day, and I was ready, physically and mentally fit, to go back to Vietnam.
It was May 2, 1968 in South Vietnam near Loc Ninh, where Roy's bravery truly shone. He embarked on a rescue mission despite the overwhelming odds stacked against him. His heroic actions saved the lives of at least 8 men. For his gallantry, Roy was initially awarded Distinguished Service Cross and 4 Purple Hearts, but later in 1981 decoration was upgraded to the Medal of Honor. Citation, read by President Ronald Reagan.
Master Sergeant Roy P. Benavidez, United States Army retired, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Where there is a brave man, it is said, there is the thickest of the fight, there is the place of honor. On May 2nd, 1968, Master Sergeant, then Staff Sergeant Roy P. Benavidez distinguished himself by a series of daring and extremely valorous actions while assigned to Detachment B-56, 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, 1st Special Forces, Republic of Vietnam. On the morning of May 2, 1968, a 12-man Special Forces reconnaissance team was inserted by helicopters in a dense jungle area west of Loc Ninh, Vietnam, to gather intelligence information about confirmed large-scale enemy activity. This area was controlled and routinely patrolled by the North Vietnamese Army. After a short period of time on the ground, the team met heavy enemy resistance and requested emergency extraction. 3 helicopters attempted extraction, but were unable to land due to intense enemy small arms and anti-aircraft fire. Sergeant Benavidez was at the forward operating base in Loc Ninh monitoring the operation by radio when these helicopters returned to offload wounded crew members and to assess aircraft damage. Sergeant Benavidez voluntarily boarded a returning aircraft to assist in another extraction attempt. Realizing that all the team members were either dead or wounded and unable to move to the pickup zone, he directed the aircraft to a nearby clearing where he jumped from the hovering helicopter and ran approximately 75 meters under withering small arms fire to the crippled team. Prior to reaching the team's position, he was wounded in his right leg, face, and head. Despite these painful injuries, he took charge, repositioning the team members and directing their fire to facilitate the landing of an extraction aircraft and the loading of wounded and dead team members. He then threw smoke canisters to direct the aircraft to the team's position. Despite his severe wounds and under intense enemy fire, he carried and dragged half of the wounded team members to the awaiting aircraft. He then provided protective fire by running alongside the aircraft as it moved to pick up the remaining team members. As the enemy's fire intensified, he hurried to recover the body and the classified documents on the dead team leader. When he reached the team leader's body, Sergeant Benavidez was severely wounded by small arms fire in the abdomen and grenade fragments in his back. At nearly the same moment, the aircraft pilot was mortally wounded and his helicopter crashed. Although in extremely critical condition due to his multiple wounds, Sergeant Benavidez secured the classified documents and made his way back to the wreckage, where he aided the wounded out of the overturned aircraft and gathered the stunned survivors into a defensive perimeter. Under increasing enemy automatic weapons and grenade fire, he moved around the perimeter, distributing water and ammunition to his weary men, reinstilling in them a will to live and fight. Facing a buildup of enemy opposition with a beleaguered team, Sergeant Benavidez mustered his strength and began calling in tactical airstrikes and directing the fire from supporting gunships to suppress the enemy's fire and so permit another extraction attempt. He was wounded again in his thigh by small arms fire while administering first aid to a wounded team member just before another extraction helicopter was able to land. His indomitable spirit kept him going as he began to carry his comrades to the craft. On his second trip with the wounded, he was clubbed from behind by an enemy soldier. In the ensuing hand-to-hand combat, he sustained additional wounds to his head and arms before killing his adversary. He then continued under devastating fire to carry the wounded to the helicopter. Upon reaching the aircraft, he spotted and killed 2 enemy soldiers who were rushing the craft from an angle that prevented the aircraft door gunner from firing upon them. With little strength remaining, he made one last trip to the perimeter to ensure that all classified material had been collected or destroyed and to bring in the remaining wounded. Only then, in serious condition from numerous wounds and loss of blood, did he allow himself to be pulled into the extraction aircraft. Sergeant Benavidez' gallant choice to join voluntarily his comrades who were in critical straits, to expose himself constantly to withering enemy fire, and his refusal to be stopped despite numerous severe wounds saved the lives of at least 8 men. His fearless personal leadership, tenacious devotion to duty, and extremely valorous actions in the face of overwhelming odds were in keeping with the finest traditions of the military service and reflect the utmost credit on him and the United States Army. Sergeant Benavidez, a nation grateful to you and to all your comrades living and dead, awards you its highest symbol of gratitude. For service above and beyond the call of duty, the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Back from dead.
When they pulled me out, they said that I was holding my intestines in my hand. I don't remember. I was so scared, so tired, that they let me lay on the floor of that chopper. And blood was flowing all around us. When we pulled up, blood was flowing out like an open socket. When we landed and they started identifying the bodies, they found out that I loaded 3 dead enemy soldiers by mistake. I didn't want to leave anybody behind. And so they let me lay next to the enemy soldiers, NVA, and they were putting them in body bags. And I couldn't talk. They were already put me in a body bag, and the zipper was coming up, and I couldn't tell this guy, hey, I'm still alive, man. I'm still alive. And my buddy, Jerry Cottenham, he went and got a doctor, grabbed him, and he made that doctor feel my heartbeat. When I felt that doctor's hand on my chest, I spit in his face. That's the only sign that I had, the only strength that I had to let him know that I was still alive.
In 1976, Benavidez, his wife, and their 3 children returned home to El Campo, Texas. He devoted his remaining years to the youth of America, speaking to them about the importance of staying in school and getting an education. His message was simple: an education is the key to success. Bad habits and bad company will ruin you. Roy Benavidez died on November 29, 1998, at the age of 63 at Brooke Army Medical Center, having suffered respiratory failure and complications of diabetes. Master Sergeant Roy Benavidez was buried with full military honors at Fort Sam Houston National Cemetery. Benavidez received numerous personal honors post his Medal of Honor. Recently, in 2019, the portion of Texas State Highway 71 in Wharton County, Texas, where Benavidez grew up, located between the Colorado County line and FM 2765, is designated the Roy Benavidez Memorial Highway. His Medal of Honor is on display at the Ronald Reagan Library, along with a video of him receiving the medal from President Reagan. Thank you for your time watching Valor Stories. Subscribe and share to honor these heroes. Until next time, remember their courage.